I hope everyone is settled down already and you have taken your snacks. Please take your snacks and have coffee at the back. So, good morning, and this is Melinda Quinones, the Research Information Department Manager of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. So, on behalf of PIDS and Informa Markets, we welcome you to today's forum titled Energy Security in the Age of Renewables. Is the Philippines ready for energy transition? So this forum is part of the Philippine Energy Expo 2026. And we are pleased to join PhilEnergy for the first time. So since 2017, PhilEnergy has brought together key players in the energy sector to exchange ideas, discuss issues, and build partnerships. So we thank Informa Markets for inviting us and for giving us the opportunity to share our important research on this important event. So as PhilEnergy highlights new technologies and partnerships shaping the future of energy, it also provides a good venue for discussing the country's energy challenges and opportunities. So today's forum focuses on the important question: how can the Philippines shift to renewable energy while ensuring a sustainable and reliable power supply? So we are glad to welcome our participants from government agencies, the private sector, the academe, the media, civil society organizations, and of course the general public who are part of this activity. So to formally welcome us to today's forum, may we request our President Philip Arnold P. Tuanyo to deliver the welcome remarks.
Thank you, Mel. Good morning to our distinguished guests, colleagues from government, members of the academe, representatives from the private sector, development partners, and everyone joining us today. On behalf of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this policy forum titled Energy Security in the Age of Renewables: Is the Philippines Ready for Energy Transition? I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Informa Markets, organizer of this expo, for partnering with PIDS and for providing this valuable platform where policymakers, researchers, industry leaders, investors, and technology providers can come together to discuss one of the most important development challenges facing our country today. This year's event is particularly significant for PIDS as it marks our first partnership with PhilEnergy as both a policy forum partner and exhibitor. PhilEnergy has become a key venue for dialogue and collaboration across the energy sector, bringing together stakeholders from renewable energy, energy efficiency, electric power, electric vehicles, and energy storage. This event continues to reflect the continuing importance of energy security and sustainability in the country's development agenda. The energy sector sits at the heart of the Philippine development aspirations. Reliable, affordable, sustainable energy is essential not only for powering homes and businesses but also for supporting industrialization, attracting investment, generating employment, and improving the quality of life of Filipino households. As the country seeks to sustain economic growth and strengthen resilience and achieve its climate commitments, the challenge of securing a stable energy future has become more urgent than ever. Despite our abundant renewable energy potential, the country's power sector remains heavily dependent on fossil fuels. In 2023, coal accounted for 62% of electricity generation, making the Philippines one of the most coal-dependent power systems in the world. At the same time, more than 80% of the country's coal is imported, exposing our economy to fluctuations in global fuel prices and supply disruptions. The economic implications are significant. Higher fuel prices translate into higher electricity, increased expense and reduce competitiveness for industries. Seeking to transformation and attract greater investments in manufacturing, digital devices, and modern industries, the cost and reliability of electricity remain critical concerns. Indeed, energy security is not simply an energy sector issue. It is fundamentally an economic development. These concerns are not merely theoretical. Last month, PIDS convened a webinar on the country's currently energy challenges discussion related two important realities that are highly relevant. First, recent power outages in Luzon underscore the urgent need for power grid modernization. Experts emphasize that while expanding generation capacity remains important for reliability and systems are equally critical to ensure a secure and stable energy supply. The outages serve as a reminder that energy security depends not only on how much power we generate, but also on how effectively we deliver electricity to households, businesses, and second, the discussions highlighted the continuing importance of cities in Expo. Same experts noted that these subsidies can be made more effective, better to reaches those who need it most while maintaining fiscal sustainability. These findings force a broader that energy security requires a comprehensive approach, one that combines reliable infrastructure, sound regulation, social protection measures, and a carefully managed transition towards cleaner and more sustainable energy sources. At the same time, the Philippines has committed to an ambitious energy transition program. The country aims to increase the share of renewable energy in the power generation mix from 35% to 35% by 2030 and 50% by 2040. Achieving these targets presents significant opportunities not only for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but also for enhancing long-term energy security by diversifying energy sources and reducing dependence on imported fuels. This transition, however, will not be easy. Expanding renewable energy deployment will require substantial investments in transmission infrastructure, energy storage systems, grid modernization, digital technologies, and institutional capacity. Policymakers must carefully balance what is often called the energy trilemma, or perhaps even a quadruple challenge in the Philippine context, ensuring affordability, reliability, sustainability, and security simultaneously. These choices made today will shape the country's energy system for decades to come. These realities, therefore, brings us to the central question of today's forum. How can the Philippines successfully navigate the transition towards a cleaner and more sustainable energy future, while ensuring the energy remains secure, reliable, resilient, affordable, and accessible to all Filipinos? It is a question that lies at the intersection of economics, technology, governance, and public policy, and one that is critical to the country's long-term development trajectory. This morning, we will hear from Dr. Adoracion Navarro, Senior Research Fellow at PIDS, who will present the findings of her study, How Energy Secure is the Philippines. The study provides an evidence-based assessment of the country's energy security across several dimensions, including sufficiency, reliability, resilience, affordability, accessibility, and sustainability. Following the presentation, our distinguished panel of reactors will discuss their implications for energy planning and grid modernization, renewable energy development, and national energy security. We are therefore honored to have with us Mr. J. Joel Soriano, Vice President and Head of Strategy and Planning of FirstGen Corporation, Director Sharon Ocampo Montaner of the Market Operations Service of the Energy Regulatory Commission, and Supervising Science Research from the department. We thank them for gracing us with their presence and for sharing their expertise on this important topic. We also extend our appreciation to Ms. Mirna Velasco of the Manila Bulletin for moderating and guiding today's discussions. At PIDS, we firmly believe that sound public policy must be grounded in rigorous evidence and informed dialogue. As the country pursues its energy transition, it is essential that decisions are guided not only by environmental objectives, but also by careful consideration of economic realities, technological requirements, and social outcomes. We hope that today's forum will contribute to a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities before us and help identify practical pathways towards a secure, resilient, affordable, and sustainable energy future for all Filipinos. Before I conclude, I would like to invite everyone to visit the PIDS booth at the exhibition area. I think it's just outside, no? To share after today's session. Our team will be available to share our latest studies and publications on energy and other development issues and to discuss how research can help inform policy making and development outcomes. We likewise invite you to visit other PhilEnergy 2026 exhibitors and participate in its various conferences and network activities in the coming days. Again, my sincerest thanks to Informa Markets, our speaker, panelists, moderator, and all participants for joining us today. We look forward to an insightful and useful discussion. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat.
Thank you so much, Dr. Randy, for setting the tone for today's very important discussion. So we will now proceed to the presentation. To present the study, we have with us Dr. Adoracion Navarro. Dr. Navarro is a Senior Research Fellow at the PIDS, specializing in energy, infrastructure, public-private partnerships, and regional development. She previously served as NEDA, or DepDev's Undersecretary for Regional Development, and holds degree from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and Columbia University, and currently serves as a commander in the Philippine Navy Reserve. Let us give her a round of applause, please.
Thank you, DML, and good morning, everyone. I see familiar faces. I'm glad that you're here, energy stakeholders, and there are also many participants now from the industry. And this is the first time that the PIDS is participating in a trade forum, no? And now we're an exhibitor. And we're grateful to Informa for inviting us here, because the way we usually communicate our research findings to the public is through in-house seminars and webinars, and we're not sure if we're attracting many participants from the private sector. So this is the first time for us to, really mingle with the energy stakeholders from the private sector, and of course, sa public sector. Ang daming familiar faces. So thank you for coming here. So we did this study in 2022 and finished it in 2023, and we used 2021 data. But we noted that the downloads, the recent downloads, manifest resurgence in interest here, and then Informa invited us that the PIDS team conceptualized this, that this is a timely topic, and true enough, because when we revisited the data, so we updated the figures, the graphs, you will see not 2021 data except for one graph. We revisited the data, and based on our updates, the findings are still the same, and you will see why. And for those who have not yet downloaded the study, it's available on our website. Just Google or just use that title in the search terms. Okay. And by the way, thank you to Janina Sofia Jacinto for competently doing the updates here. Okay, so my presentation is outlined this way. So I'll show you the energy security indicators for the 6 dimensions. Kasi we recommended that going forward, the government and energy stakeholders should look at energy security based on these 6 broad dimensions, no? Sufficiency, reliability, resilience, affordability, accessibility, and sustainability. Because we noticed that previously lagging sufficiency only, but that's not the only dimension of energy security. Okay, and then we'll after giving some policy insights and recommendations, no, the 2022 study is only up to this, no, but we would like to extend the relevance to renewable energy. What are the implications for the renewable energy sector? Okay, next slide. So the basic sufficiency indicators are, sufficient our primary energy supply and also self-sufficiency ratio. Ito yung laging ina-announce ng DOE, the self-sufficiency ratio. But we would like to emphasize that sufficiency is coming not only from our own sources but also from imported sources. So the total primary energy supplied, so that's coming from our own sources and imports, no? And if you will see, no, ito yung fossil fuels, no? Oil, coal, and natural gas. That's 70% for 2024, meaning only 30% yung from renewable energy. And then, if we are to look at how much of our primary energy supply are coming from our own production, no? Ito yun. The trend shows declining. So this is, let me check the actual number. So for 2024, the self-sufficiency ratio was 45% only. It was a high of 61% in 1990 actually. Okay, so dito yung government. But there are other strategies for strengthening energy security, no? By, for example, diversifying our import sources. Okay, and let's look at next slide, import sources, no? So let's look at the demand for coal. Demand for coal is increasing vis-a-vis our own production, and if we compare with the supply, no, the demand for coal is increasing and has to be increasingly met by imports. So the orange part of that upper graph on the left panel. And let's look at the reserves to production ratio. So yung reserves are used to assess the longevity of our energy resource, no? Kumbaga showing the remaining years of remaining years worth given certain rates of annual production and consumption. So kung high yung ratio, that means large reserves are still available. But if the ratios are small, are low, then that signals that the particular resource, unless merong new reserves that are discovered, proven reserves, no, the decline in the ratios will have adverse effects on energy self-sufficiency. And as you can see from the graph nga, declining yung reserves to production ratio for oil and reserves to consumption ratio for oil and also for natural gas. Okay. So and also for natural gas, no, we know based on the news that the decline will continue to do so unless there will be additional commercially recoverable reserves. And we're doing or the government is doing something about that by extending the Malampaya contract, for example. Next slide. Let's look at the sufficiency indicators, an additional sufficiency indicator that pertains to diversification of import sources. So first, Herfindahl-Hirschman Index of imports. No? When we say Herfindahl-Hirschman Index or HHI, no, it's a measure of market concentration, no, ranging from 0 to 1. An HHI of 1 would imply that the energy supply is imported from only one country, so market concentration. And if it's closer to 0, no, if imported from multiple countries, many countries. And you can see for coal and oil, crude oil and petroleum products, no, and the spent oil, no, trending was higher and higher concentration, no, indicating higher and higher coal import dependence and crude oil import dependence. Our coal import dependence, no, concentrated sa Indonesia, previously Australia, Mas marami na in Indonesia. And then, for crude oil, highly import dependent tayo sa Middle East. And in fact, no, growing import dependence when it comes to crude oil nga sa Middle East. That's 96.84% in 2024. And I think sa 2025, higher. Although we weren't able to get the official data from the DOE. But based on recent events, no, in the Middle East, the geopolitical conflict in the Middle East, no, based on news announcements, no, almost 99% daw dependence to Middle East. Okay, next slide. Some good news. Next slide. Some good news. Good news, good news. Oh no, not yet. Reliability indicators, not yet the good news. Okay. Why is reliability not here? Okay, reliability indicator. Okay. Energy reliability is the continuous availability of energy. Yung assurance that instantaneously, any minute, any second, energy is available, energy is there. So that's reliability. So if, okay, kanina reliability yung, but this is the good news, no? Part pa rin kasi of sufficiency indicator, no? Before we move on to reliability. So as you can see, no, declining trend ng total primary energy supply to GDP ratio, and TFEC means total final energy consumption to GDP ratios. Meaning with less and less energy for every unit of gross value added production, no? And we need less and less energy for our consumption. So demand management must be working kasi on the aggregate it's showing, no, na energy efficiency improvements, no, by Filipinos, by firms, households and firms, no. That's a conscious effort, no, and we are seeing the effect. Okay, let's go to reliability indicators. Okay, let's look at the first the panel on the left side, no. So you can see that reserve margin relative to dependable capacity seems enough. It looks like it's enough. But the trend is declining. So you can see the trend is declining, the reserve margin. And in fact, no, in 2024 alone, kasi the reserve margin is becoming tight ng so this is the official data. We don't have the 2025 official data yet. No, in 2024 alone, the market had to be suspended 2,401 times. So this is the total of 2,400 suspension events, no, for this for year 2024 due to red alert notices, yung red alerts by the grid operator, no. And why is that? Aging power plants, lack of alternatives when large power plants fail, kagaya nung nangyari a few months ago. Was that April? April, I think yun, no? No? No, May. Exactly when the PIDS was holding a conference or a seminar on energy sector issues. No, the day before, no, a large power plant failed, and then and it's a base load. It's a base load power plant. So yun, and also grid congestion. Well, insufficiency in transmission infrastructure capacity. So those contribute to the problem. Then let's look at the distribution utility level, reliability indicators. Meron tayong what's called, next slide, system average interruption frequency index, momentary average interruption frequency index, and system average interruption duration index. And thanks to ERC for monitoring this. Pero ma'am, sana meron kayong pwedeng dashboard or any source of data na updated palagi. But based on ERC monitoring, ito yung reliability indicators at the distribution utility level, and the interruptions are annual SIFI 33 interruptions per customer as of latest data 2023, and momentary interruption 23 interruptions per minute, per customer, sorry. And then overall system average interruption index 4,002 minutes, or kumbaga yung lost per customer 4,002 minutes, And then there were also spikes in the past due to severe power supply shortage problems. Not shown here, but in the discussion paper in the study, based on 2021 data, the Philippines has the highest SIDI among its peers, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Okay, next slide. More indicators on resilience naman. And the indicators, next slide. The indicators also suggest weakness. So halos na indicators suggest weakness or energy insecurity. So the short answer to how energy secure is the Philippines, we're insecure. So sa lang na may positive doon sa aggregate demand management, sa energy efficiency efforts. So on resilience, our resilience to oil supply shocks is low, given to be expected yun, given the high concentration of our import sources, Middle East lang, as you seen in the previous slide. And then our low average daily inventory, as seen on the left panel of this slide, also shows our resilience weakness. Yung days of on-land oil stocks, which is a measure of yung available on-land na oil stocks in case of a temporary loss of supply, say due to war in the Middle East, Ito yon, so we were, or siguro dati pa lang yung request namin from the DOE on the data. But as of 2021, 9,999,000 barrels of finished petroleum products were available in land, and equivalent lang yun sa sa right vertical line, 24 days of supply only. What the DOE wants to have is to legislate the required minimum oil inventory, not 30 days based on the previous Congress. So I don't know what the DOE is now requesting, not to legislate 30 days pa rin ba? But we need more than that if we want to be energy secure, and the DOE is now exploring strategic petroleum reserves. I was inquiring from the DOE representative kanina. So we'll see if we hope PIDS would be able to do some research on that also. And then commercial energy access ratio, the one on the right panel, when we say commercial energy access ratio, it means yung overall capacity of the country to supply energy domestically using commercial energy. So how do we distinguish yung commercial versus non-commercial energy? Yung commercial energy, yung may for the natural gas. Yung non-commercial, yung tipong kahoy, firewood, and similar sources. And then in 2024, commercial energy access ratio, or the value of commercial energy as a proportion of TPS, was 89%. And the decades of data also show that the Philippines made steady but slow improvements in, kasi suggestive ito of improvements in the domestic supply chain infrastructure. So hindi lang the infrastructure in the electric power sector, but also in other sectors sa natural gas and sa oil. So aggregate aggregate representation. So increasing naman yung trend, but steady and very gradual. No, so that suggests that the improvements in our domestic supply chain infrastructure is very slow. No, so that's what the story is in the past 3 decades. Okay, next slide. Affordability indicator. So ito yung what's what's more prominent kasi it hurts households pockets, no. So ilang beses nating narinig, no, we have sometimes the highest electricity price in the ASEAN, sometimes the second to the highest. So given the 2024 data, we're second to Singapore, second to the highest. And then in terms of geographic characteristic of the non-affordability of electricity. So within the country, electric cooperatives tend to charge higher prices than private distribution utilities. No, and then but that's 2020. Among both types of utilities, those in Visayas, those in Visayas tend to charge higher. The tight supply situation in the Visayas, no. So the Visayas utilities tend to charge higher than those in Luzon and Mindanao. Okay, accessibility. When we look at accessibility, next slide, we compare with our neighbors in the ASEAN. So other ASEAN countries already have universal na 100% electrification rates or near universal electrification rate. Pero tayo not yet. No, so based on World Bank data set na based on population, but for many years we asked DOE to focus on household rather than barangay electrification or sitio electrification or household electrification. And we're glad to note that the DOE is doing some recalculations, and based on their data, 94.93%. But I think there's a need to communicate well yung difference, no, dito, and also to the World Bank when we send official statistics. Kasi I think this is more reliable because finally DOE is recalculating based on household electrification data. Naabutan ko during my junior years kasi when there are 20 I saw familiar faces now from our junior years in the energy sector. If there are 20 connections, considered connected na yung locality. But that's now how we should do it. Let's look at the households and the number of households connected. Sustainability indicator. So, ito na, last indicator and still bad news. Next slide, sustainability. Okay. So, Filipinos are on what path? No? High emissions path. For greenhouse gas emissions to total primary energy supply ratio and greenhouse gas emissions for ito pala yung energy supply. Ito yung sa fossil fuel supply. So the trend is increasing. And on a per capita basis, no? On a per capita basis, each village, no, is emitting more, no? Increasing emissions per capita. Although if we will compare this with emissions per capita in advanced countries, no, maliit lang yan. But still, this is not a sustainable path, no? This is not a sustainable path. Things have to change when it comes to our the households and the firms' behavior in consumption. Okay, next slide. Policy insights. So we need to address insufficiency of supply. So that takes care of the sufficiency indicators, no, by boosting our development of indigenous sources, no, And ito hintay ng private sector, clarifying the upstream investment frameworks, and then diversifying import sources. Kasi nakita naman natin yung high market concentration indices kanina, as well as continuously improving energy efficiency through demand management. Then, to address reliability, we need to improve the oversight of ancillary reserves, expedite grid infrastructure upgrades and expansion, capacity expansion. Then, and I think the ERC, just a few days ago, the ERC released a circular that will somehow help in the grid capacity expansion. Kasi yung nabasa ko, ma'am, yung point-to-point transmission can be done by third parties, not necessarily NGCP. But yesterday, NGCP, I don't know if there's a NGCP representative here, NGCP said that they will scrutinize this and check whether there are violations in the concession agreement or in the franchise law that granted them the franchise, that granted them monopoly power. But that's a good development. And then accelerate generation capacity expansion. So we have first gen here. So your committed capacities hopefully will come online in a timely manner. And then strengthen energy sector resilience through investments in domestic energy supply chains, including for electric vehicles. We need to accelerate in that aspect. And then natural gas infrastructure alongside improved oil inventory security. We need to legislate the minimum oil inventory requirements. But about the strategic petroleum reserves, the current design that Maharlika and the DOE are thinking of now, I have no opinion yet. I want to study it in more detail. Then enhance energy affordability by promoting greater competition in the power market and accelerate the clean energy transition, especially in the transport sector. Then advance universal access and sustainability through household-based electrification targeting, so continuously doing that, and sana cleaner yung data, kasi before meron kaming napansin na gaps in the data. And then faster microgrid deployment, we have the Microgrid Act. How do we accelerate the investments in that aspect for our remote islands? And then expanded use of green finance and clean energy initiatives. Our banking sector needs to catch up on their knowledge on green finance and clean energy initiatives, as I found out in a recent discussion with the PhilEnergy Corporation. Then let me extend the insights to renewable energy. Again, this is no longer part of the study, but given this conference, next slide, we are making this extension of the analysis. So for sufficiency, when we improve the sufficiency through more renewable energy investments, especially given that we have a lot of indigenous sources, we'll have greater energy independence, and then lower exposure to international price shocks, and less use of dollars, therefore improved balance of payments. And then, large utilization of our abundant indigenous resources. For reliability, so when we increase generation capacity using renewable energy, we'll have more reliable supply of electricity. But there are challenges again in the grid, in storage, and also challenges because of our archipelagic characteristic. But there are opportunities in geographic diversification, in storage systems, in technologies for flexible generation, and modern grid operation. So I guess there are exhibitors there who who are offering technologies for the energy stakeholders. The resilience. So when we integrate renewable energy in the generation mix, resilience is a challenge, no? But there are opportunities in microgrids, no, for the remote islands, community solar systems, and distributed generation. So that's a challenge to centralized generation, and also an opportunity for investors. Then reduce vulnerability to international supply disruptions and weather-related disruptions. Affordability, when we have more renewable energy investments, over the long term, will save on costs, and that will translate to affordability to consumers, households, and firms. And will have reduced exposure to volatile international prices. Accessibility, no? Again, given our archipelagic nature and given opportunities for renewable energy investments in remote islands, will have improved accessibility through these technologies. Solar home systems, hybrid microgrids, and off-grid solutions. Sustainability will be improved given climate mitigation and opportunities for green finance, cleaner transport, improve environmental quality. So I think where the government needs more insights are on risks and requisites, requirements, and hopefully our private sector stakeholders would be able to give insights to the government. Ano ba yung necessary investments? Ano ba yung policy challenges? And in terms of policy challenges, PIDS would like to help the government assess this and come up with solutions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adora, for that insightful presentation. We've learned a lot from the presentation. And right now, we will learn so much more, no, from the reactions of our panelists who will share their views on the study's findings. This will be followed by a moderated discussion and an open forum. At this point, we would like to invite our esteemed panelists to join us on stage, as I call them one by one. So first, we have Mr. Joel J. El Soriano, the Head of Strategy and Planning for the First Gen Corporation. Welcome, sir. Please have a seat. Previously held leadership roles at Energy Development Corporation and pharmaceutical firms. He holds an MBA from Harvard University and a management engineering degree from Ateneo de Manila University. Next, we have Ms. Sharon Ocampo Montanier, the Director of Market Operations Service of the Energy Regulatory Commission. She is an economist from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She has over 24 years of experience in energy regulation and has led renewable energy policy implementation since the Renewable Energy Act of 2008. To complete the panelists, we have Ms. Marieta Quijada, Supervising Science Research Specialist at the Department of Energy. With over 2 decades of experience, she specializes in energy planning, policy development, and sustainable energy transition. Good morning, ma'ams and sirs. And now, to facilitate this discussion, allow me introduce our moderator, Ms. Mirna Velasco. Ms. Velasco is an award-winning business journalist, energy columnist of the Manila Bulletin, and host of the television program Power Shift. She is a recognized energy expert, author, researcher, and speaker with extensive experience covering energy policy, investment, and industry developments in the Philippines and abroad. I now turn over the floor to Ms. Mirna to start our panel discussion.
Good morning, everyone. I have actually to hop on a plane from Europe to this event. So I have to keep my energy until we would finish on this panel discussion. But first, I would have to get your insights and reaction to the study that was presented. I'll start with you.
Thank you, ma'am. Um, Actually, in the Department of Energy, we have the so-called ARC objectives, which is the A is for access for affordable energy, and R is for reliability and resiliency, and then clean energy and sustainable energy. And yeah, under the access to affordable energy, we have that goal for 100% electrification, and then um, we look at the we have a plan for the smart green grid plan to at least accommodate all this our goal for the clean energy. Of course, under the clean energy and sustainable energy dimension, we have a goal under the Philippine Energy Plan for the 35% renewable energy by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So that's how we crafted. And all other, under this ARC objectives, we have other supporting measures to be able to achieve these ARC goals. That's why we call it. And I think, so this, okay, so next slide, please.
You can stand up, Miss Mariana,
Yeah, sorry.
if it's easier for you.
Okay. So I have prepared slides here for the recommendations of the ideas. We are thankful that you have done a timely study about this, because that's our goal also. So for the sufficiency, under the sufficiency, the study says that the declining self-sufficiency ratio and reserves to reproduction indicators confirm the urgency of our upstream development agenda. So DOE is committed to clarify the investment framework under the Presidential Decree 87 and Presidential Decree 1459, that is ensuring the exploration of our own resources. Actually, as of January 2026, we already have a new finds for natural gas that is about 98 billion cubic feet, but it's only about 1/3 of the reserve that the Malampaya has before. But this is still under the Malampaya part. Now, under the reliability findings and recommendations on tight reserve margins and frequent interruption, and which highlight the need for stricter enforcement of ancillary reserve contracting. As I've said, that we have under the Philippine Energy Plan, we have a volume for this to look at the smart green grid plan. So this will be later on this will support the expansion of renewable energy. And then for resiliency, the study says that the study's emphasis on oil's supply shocks and concentrated import sources underscore the importance of diversification. So, as discussed with Dr. Navarro a while ago, yes, the DOE is now considering the establishing a strategic petroleum reserve, and the Congress is now looking at that for to support the DOE on the establishment of this program. Next slide, please. On affordability, yeah. Yes, as I've seen the graph of Dr. Navarro a while ago, sometimes we are the second and sometimes we're the first. And one of the things that the EPIRA does about that is that the EPIRA has removed the burden from the government to subsidize the electricity industry. That's why our neighboring countries, as we compare there, most of those neighboring countries are subsidized. So it is nothing compared to other neighboring countries in ASEAN. So I would say that APIRA is successful at that. What we have now is the true cost of what we are paying is the true cost of electricity, unlike our neighboring countries. Now, for accessibility, we acknowledge the recommendation to shift to household-based targeting in electrification programs. Although before I think that 98 from the World Bank that is based on the barangay connection, but because when it comes to measuring the indicators for household, we also cover that, which is now we are at 94. Actually, when we look, we have this household energy consumption survey. We found out that it is in the barm area that has the lowest underserved connection when it comes to household. But surprisingly, they have the highest solar home system. So may kapalit. Hindi they are able to supply their energy but not connected to the grid. So hindi yun yung kailangan ding maging clear sa atin. Ano ba yung mini-measure natin? Electrification lang ba or energization? So next slide. Okay. Tapos na ba tayo dun sa ano? So ito po yung, this is our strategic direction. We plan to institutionalize the indicator-based monitoring of energy security. Actually, the main goal for the Philippine Energy Plan is energy security. So when we look at these goals, kasi time is up na po. So anyway, I've handled naman na po lahat ng recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Marietta. Now, we will have to go to the agency that is seen as a pain in the pockets of consumers. So, Ms. Sharon Montanier of the ERC.
Yes, again, well, first, thank you to PIDS for inviting us over in this panel. And just a very short comment on the study. First, on sufficiency, in ERC, we do it in a parallel track. Supply, address supply sufficiency, and demand-side programs. So in supply, we have lots of, there are already institutional programs there. The competitive selection process where we already institutionalized that the rates as a result of that procurement, CSP, will be the rate that will be approved but will be very strict in the process that it underwent. Okay, and we have the green energy auction. We have the markets that the WESM and the retail market as additional markets for investors. But on the demand side, really, there is a lot of potential. The ability of the consumers to produce their own electricity will lessen the pressure on the supply. So that we're pushing that, the net metering, distributed energy resources, self-generating facilities, and likewise, energy efficiency programs of the DOE. And as you have shown earlier, that's good news because it has improved. And then the future of electric vehicle. Okay. On reliability, you have pointed out earlier the market suspension, the red and yellow alerts. You have shown data on the 2024 red alerts. Well, the 2024 was a very challenging year for all of us. It is when we experienced very high heat index. But I'll just very quick on the data for Luzon, the red alerts in Luzon alone. In 2022, it was only 9 hours and 57 minutes. Red alerts, because the red alerts there will be a suspension of the market during red alerts. And then in 2023, it's only 2 hours 59 minutes in Luzon. But in 2024, it was 63 hours and 94 minutes. And then in 2025 in Luzon, no red alerts. So it was the climate at that time, the El Nino at that attributed to that. And we have to also brace ourselves for the super El Nino coming by the latter part of this year. Okay. Now on Reliant, we have responded. The Commission has responded the oil crisis when we have suspended the market, and that is an indication that the market is able to respond to this, and the design is enough to be able to respond and at suppress prices. At that time, 9 pesos was what we're looking at without the suspension. Okay. On affordability, we continue to institute to ensure reasonable rates. We have addressed backlogs in the rate resets, right? And then the uniform national lines, as pointed out by the DOE earlier, we're promoting competition, both in generation and especially in the retail market. So we have this June 26, the threshold will already be lowered to 100 kilowatts. And we will be releasing this year the roadmap going to household level. And we've seen the benefit of retail competition and open access, and we hope all consumers will be able to benefit from that, mainly because this is the end goal of the EPIRA. And very soon, because we have opened this up to household level through the retail aggregation program, and we have been actively promoting the retail aggregation program, very soon you will see an aggregation program from the household level. On accessibility, well, much has been said by the DOE on electrification, and but under the renewable portfolio standards of grid supply, there will be hybridization. So we have lots of diesel gensets in the islands, and there is a program to hybridize this with solar. So solar, diesel, plus battery, okay? And I hope that will address the household electrification, the increase in the household electrification. On sustainability, yes, I agree, we have to push clean energy resources, but we also have to look into the ability of these resources to respond to the variability of these clean energy sources, meaning flexibility. The ancillary services to be able to respond also to this variability. Take, for example, the red and yellow alert that happened in May, as you pointed out. The midday peak was, we did not feel any thinning of the margin during the midday peak, mainly because of solar generation. But the red alerts came in starting 4 p.m. up to 12 midnight when solar generation was going down. And if only could, the grid has that flexibility to absorb the over-generation of these solar facilities during the midday. Because there was over-generation, and you can see this by the negative pricing in the WESM. So if we have batteries, enough batteries there, we could shift this over-generation to the evening peak. So I think flexibility will be a big challenge when we push for more renewable energy. So that's it for the ERC. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sharon. So we have to go to the only person on the panel who would man up for the panel discussion, because so Jay.
Thank you, Mirna. Good morning, everyone. So, clearly a very rich topic that we're trying to discuss this morning. And at the risk of taking the entire day for my reaction, I hope you will allow me to read.
It's just 5 minutes.
I know. Allow me to read if you don't mind. So again, good morning, everyone, and thank you to the organizers from the Philippine Institute for Development Studies for bringing us together. As a group that has been striving to respond to our country's need for energy security for the past 5 decades, we at First Gen are fully aware of the balancing act that Dr. Navarro outlined in her study, How Energy Secure is the Philippines. For too long, public discourse has focused narrowly on immediate affordability and accessibility. Such a narrow focus lures us into an overly simplified perspective of building generating capacity that assumes stable industry dynamics. Our experience of the US-Iran conflict over the past few months reminds us that our world remains highly complex and extremely uncertain. Today, majority of our generation comes from coal, resulting in an over-reliance on imported fossil fuels. This, among many other factors, has exposed Filipino consumers to global supply shocks and highly volatile electricity rates. Furthermore, over 55% of our grid's capacity comes from plants built in 2003 or earlier, potentially triggering frequent disruptive red and yellow alerts. But Dr. Navarro introduced a critical nuance to the conversation as she elevates the concern on both sufficiency and sustainability, which are often missed in these discussions. And if ever they are mentioned together, the topic often implies that we must choose between reliability and sustainability. Our goal is to shatter that compromise, with our first-gen renewables portfolio being the clearest proof that we need not choose between the two. Recognize that true energy security cannot exist if we are simply matching demand with fossil fuels. It requires an aggressive shift towards sustainable indigenous sufficiency. Renewable energy is the definitive vehicle to get us to our destination. However, as we accept deployment, we must be mindful of building the right technology in the right location. All RE technologies are needed. It is a collective effort. But our distinct geography and present grid constraints must dictate careful capacity planning. We cannot repeat situations like the curtailment issue we experience today in Leyte in our facilities, where solar and geothermal are forced to compete for the same transmission space, causing valuable zero-carbon power to be stranded, a less talked about but severely sad reality. This brings me to a critical point. Geothermal energy remains dangerously underemphasized in public discourse. The merits of geothermal are unmatched. It is the only true indigenous form of renewable technology that provides what intermittent renewables cannot. A 24/7 resilient, weather-dependent baseload source of electricity that isolates me from global fuel spikes and anchors grid stability. Geothermal is the only form of RE that addresses all 6 dimensions of energy security simultaneously. Hence, we refer to geothermal as 20% RE. This development geothermal is an extraordinary, high-risk, upfront capital endeavor. Drilling a greenfield exploratory well costs millions of dollars even before a single megawatt of steam is ever confirmed. Because of these barriers, geothermal development requires far more than financial backing. The Department of Energy launched the Philippine Geothermal Resource De-risking Utility. By supporting upfront exploratory drilling costs through cost-sharing frameworks, the state is addressing the high-risk pre-development phase that has stalled greenfield investments. But the financial facility is only part of the solution. To prevent a major supply breach by 2030, as forecasted in Dr. Navarro's study, the private sector urged execution support in 2 other areas. First, permitting. We need the through administrative red tape so projects can move instantly from resource confirmation to actual construction. Second, pricing mechanisms. Our market structures must evolve to utilize pricing mechanisms that explicitly recognize and reward the 24/7 continuous nature of geothermal power rather than treating it under the same frameworks as intermittent assets. First Gen is fully committed to this future. Our core strategy is intensely focused on expanding our indigenous first-gen renewable portfolio, particularly baseload geothermal, as well as hydro, and putting up battery energy storage systems to anchor a green, reliable grid. We can achieve a decarbonized, resilient future, but it cannot be a solo act by the private sector. By combining the state's power to de-risk exploration and the private sector's speed, capital, and operational efficiency, we can transition from a vulnerable, import-dependent grid to an indigenous, secure, and green energy economy. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussion.
So much for that, Jay. Just some housekeeping rules. We have a microphone at the middle of the aisle, so if you would have questions, you can just go at the middle and then you can ask it. I'll just have to ask the panel first. If energy security is a phone, smartphone, at what level is it when it comes to its level of battery before it would be out there, it would be zero. Are we going up or we're going down? If we would have to look at it from the process of restructuring that we're doing in the power industry or in the energy sector in particular. I have to start with you. So are we
The ARC objective. So we've done multi-criteria decision analysis. And we recognize that there are trade-offs. So a trade-off is not bad, but we need to reduce the impact of the trade-offs. That's what we're doing now.
Can I just have a follow-up based on the presentations that you've done? Because you've mentioned about the smart and green grid plan. We've been hearing that since 2023. Is that actually moving or it's a bit slow when it comes to implementation? And why is that? My other question is on the planned strategic petroleum reserve or oil stockpiling. In other countries, for them to have that, they would need 4 or 5 years just for the policy alone, and 10, 15, up to 30 years, in fact, in the case of the US, to turn into maturity. So how is DOE doing that so that it will help in the energy security agenda of the country?
The first
For the
one
grid,
yeah,
the grid.
the first
because
one is
that
for
has been
the-
there since 2022, 2023. But there's not a single infra that we can see from that. And Marcos administration is going into tail end of its term.
Yeah. Actually, our department is looking into that to implement that, and by this year, I think that will be published smart green grid plan, because we just finished. It will be turned over to at least to the Transco as well as the NGCP to implement that, because we could recognize that it will take about the study says that putting up infrastructure will take about 0 to 10 years.
7 to 15 years actually,
Yeah.
just to develop
Yeah,
it.
that's why we have to act immediately. That's why we've done this smart green grid plan, but it'll come out soon.
Just very shortly, the what's the plan for that?
On the SPR, I think you know that our President Marcos has had a declaration between Japan, DOE, and Japan for this. So Japan is very much interested now, and we have done an initial assessment on this and how we can move on. There are two, actually, I hope I can tell this, but we have three options. We have three options that we're looking at. One is to increase, of course, increase the, it's already in the Congress, increase the minimum inventory
For
reserve
the private
to,
sector.
for the private sector up to 30 days cover. And for the government, of course, since this is a strategic petroleum reserve, it will not earn for, it will only earn once the disruption is there. So it has to be the government who will operate that. And so that will be around 60, the plan is, what we're looking at is 60 days cover. So that will, when you add this 60 days plus that MIR of 30, that will be
90
around
days.
90 days cover. So kasi we have seen that the war extends now not over to more than 77 days now, or more, yeah, or more. So that's why we need to ensure that we have this 60 days cover for the government.
Okay. I'll go to Sharon. Affordability is one of the metrics that will define energy security for the country. Definitely for now, Filipinos are not happy with the rates that they are paying. But ERC is doing its best. What would be the policy direction, regulation when it comes to rate setting? And there's an appeal from Jay that there should be some kind of differentiation or at least some kind of specialized pricing for RE that could provide 24/7. How will the ERC be tackling that?
In terms of affordability of rates, which is really our mandate to ensure a reasonable rates for all consumers, we have done a lot already, and we continue to do so. When it comes to promotion of renewable energy, of course, we taking the lead on the technologies that has to be promoted first from the Department of Energy. But when we do our pricing, it is very transparent. We make sure that in our pricing, we take into account the efficiency of the plants because we don't want to pass on to consumers any inefficiencies. So it's tucked into our rate setting methodology. Very transparent. We open it up to consultation and comments, all the parameters in our model. So that is very transparent. Now on other aspect of pricing, much of what the pricing structure right now is because of the law, the IPIRA. Okay, we removed all subsidies. There's unbundling of rates so that as complicated as it seems, gusto man ninyo o ayaw ninyo yung ganong kadaming items in the bill, that is prescribed in the IPIRA, including the removal of subsidies. That is why what we're paying now, as mentioned by the DO earlier, is the true cost of electricity. But of course, we are here to ensure that for any programs of the government, even the clean energy scenarios of the government, we proceed in the least cost manner. Okay. So,
What about the 24/7 RE? How will that be priced? Or is there something that you can do about it?
for the base load, you mean like the
Yeah.
geothermal? Well, we have recently, I think the round 3 of JUP was very successful in terms of the awarded contracts there, and the rate that the ERC set is reasonable. So that I hope there will be future rounds of JEA for that. But the geothermal, specifically geothermal technology, we need to distinguish between greenfield and the expansion and the brownfield. Yeah, and pricing for that should be different also because the greenfield will need more exploration costs. So yes, we have done the auction. We can do it again should DOE conduct another auction. And we will go through the same process as we did, as transparent as we did it.
One short follow-up, but it might be a bit controversial. Because you mentioned we charge everything that is under the law. But there's a question about JO all. What's the legal basis for that it's being passed on? There's suspension for it recently, and there's a question if there's a legal basis for that. And there's an ongoing legislation. So which is which at this point? Would we need a new law for that so that it becomes legal? And what will be the way forward that you would be seeing when it comes to that policy?
Well, the JAOL is a result of the Green Energy Auction Program. The Green Energy Auction Program is a policy of the Department of Energy. But during the time when the DOE was preparing the Green Energy Auction Program policy, there was still the feed-in tariff at that time. But there was a declaration by the DOE that as soon as all capacities will be subscribed, then we shift to the auction, the Green Energy Auction Program. What is provided in the RE Act is the feed-in tariff program. Okay?
Yes, there's nowhere actually for green, for JOL in the RE law. I've read the entire law.
Yes,
So,
that's right. But when we came out with the FIT rules, way back in 2012, there was a letter coming from Senator Asmeña then, asking the ERC, why not subject the price discovery to auction rather than set the FIT rate? At that time, we just issued the FIT rules, and it was entirely new to the Philippines, so that we said we issued a new position paper together with our resolution that we have no objection to conducting an auction to set the rates, the FIT rates. But we have to implement first what has been promulgated so we can see the interest, we can see if the rates we're setting are really the right fit. Okay? So, but we continued with the FIT as we have designed it until such time that the DOE changed it into an auction. But the discussion on auction has been there way back in 2012.
yeah. So it's like the short answer to that is there is no actual law that actually supports it at this point, aside from the policy formulations that's laid down by the DOE.
No mention of the green energy auction in
Okay.
the RE Act.
Okay, thank you. I have to go to Jane now. Your concern is about pricing for 24/7 RE as part of the energy security agenda of the country and the concept of green lane when it comes to permitting. What's happening in both those both policies that's being laid down by the government, green lane and pricing for 24/7 RE?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's happening already. And I think, as mentioned, the GAP already considers that, it's going to field development and greenfield development. So that's a massive help. And it's not just the tariff, but also on the cost side with the geothermal de-risking facility. I think all of that then, if you put together, really helps us from a pricing and maybe, a long-term investment perspective. Right?
And that makes you happy at this point, or it's a sort of 6-7 thing?
I think, there's always room to improve, right? Because our industry is evolving and continues to be to grow and processes are getting more complex. So I think, obviously we've done a lot. The government has done a lot. Stuff like the US-Iran war, for example, or conflict, I think exposes gaps that we still need to address. And I think it's not going to be the last one, right? We'll probably end up somewhere down the road where, for example, we have greater penetration of rooftop solar, right? Because a lot of the conversation that we have, right, and with ancillary services, We've talked about how potentially old plants can provide or can result into issues in it. But I think you think about how EVs now, right? I mean, you look back
Yes.
a year or two ago, it's you don't see a lot of these Chinese EVs, but now they're sort of dominating the streets. So you take that, which is an increase in demand, take solar, you know, behind the meter, and that increases the complexity of managing the grid. So again, it continues to evolve, it continues to be complicated, and I think we just have to look at it from a perspective that we're seeing and improve continuously.
Yeah. At this, in our energy, because number one is energy, and the other one is energy transition. So if that is a marriage, the wife would say, okay, I am energy security, I am energy transition, let us rebuild the house. So we would have to make parallelism for energy security as the husband. The only question from the husband would be, can we keep the lights on? So if these two, do we have to marry these two as part of the policy positioning for the energy future, or there are some competing interests that would have to be managed when it comes to both energy security and energy transition? And the question to that is, what do we, because we have RE ambition, definitely, that's an ambition that we have. But there's also that dilemma when it comes to base load capacity. And we have a growing economy. Putting assessment into that, what exactly do we need now, and how do we ramp up RE when it comes to the needs of the country at this point, relative to economic growth? I will start with DOE.
Of course, because it's our mandate, energy security is the priority. But while doing the energy security, of course, we consider that it has to be sustainable. Sustainable in the sense that not only clean, but it should be reliable and resilient as well. So for weighing, we do the weighing. As I've said, there are trade-offs that needed to reduce the impact. So that's how we target it. So first, energy security, while implement this clean energy that we target. So for example, we have a lot of already sustainable energy like the solar. We have this. I think it is. I don't know if it's been that all solar should have storage.
Energy storage
Yeah,
system.
energy storage.
Happened during the recent red alerts. There's a lot of overcapacity when it comes to solar generation daytime that we were able to spare the grid from blackouts daytime because there's a lot of solar. But given the excess capacity, if we have had energy storage, we could have captured that, and then we could have used it during nighttime so that we could have avoided the blackouts 7 p.m. onwards. So have you seen that signal when it comes to energy storage ramping up as part of the investment future? And what scales that when it comes to percentage that you've seen?
Since we do have a lot of solar already that already part of the committed, since all of these JEA are already committed, and we have assessed if this 35% renewable energy will be achieved by 2030. Yes, it is achievable, but we need to address that reliability and resiliency. So we cannot just cut that target because it's already there. We had a successful JEA, and we do have a commitment for clean energy. So we have to address that energy security by this energy storage and looking for other sources that will complement renewable energy. I mean, other technology that will complement renewable energy. Not necessarily RE only, but it can be like hydrogen, nuclear, or something like that.
I'll have to go to Jay first because aside from geothermal, you have hydro, storage hydro, which could help when it comes to baseload capacity needs of the country. Based on the analysis of First Gen as a private sector player, what do we need to address when it comes to additional baseload capacity? And another thing that could address flexibility when it comes to the intermittency of our in the grid integration.
So I'll start off with some of the indicators that we see, right? So if you look at peak demand, right? It's been, traditionally it's been around 2 p.m., right? And typically, your highest WSM prices are also at 1 to 2 p.m., right? I think what we've seen recently is that highest pricing has shifted towards the evening, 6 to 7. And to us, that signals this reality that, as was said, we need balancing technologies help us transition from daytime where there's a lot of solar into nighttime where other capacities, other generating technologies have to step in, right? Now, we also have, in my sense, to look at the requirements of the country with a bit of nuance, particularly from a geographic perspective. Unlike other countries, other regions, we're an archipelago. We will have it's very hard, right? It's very hard, right? Build transmission capacity that cuts across oceans or seas. Now, if you look at the solar that was mentioned, I think when we looked at the data, most of that capacity will be installed in Luzon, right? Which is fine because I think still the biggest demand is in Luzon. So it makes sense to have solar in Luzon. That means then the biggest requirement for these balancing technologies will have to be in Luzon, which I think that makes sense because our hydro facility also happens to be in Luzon, right? It happens to be in Nueva Ecija, and it can then, the proximity matters, right? In response and to a certain extent, even when you factor in maybe nodal pricing, that make to co-locate all of the balancing technologies with the load and the generation capacity. It's very different in. I think if you look at Visayas, the load center is Cebu. You have to connect all other islands because, like us, the biggest geothermal facility in the country is in Leyte. And I think that you have to go where the heat is. And in this case, there is no heat in Cebu. We haven't found any. And it's in Leyte. So we produce in Leyte, and it has to find the kilowatt hours have to find its way to Cebu or the other load centers, right? And I think that's why, from a private sector perspective and investing, coming into consideration, timing that as we grow, the network, the grid also allows us to then export the electricity to where it's needed. So I think those are the things that I think, again, when we look at these data, when we look at this additional capacity and all the requirements, my ask is that we take a more nuanced view, more geographic view, and looking at technologies because, again, I think there's no one superior technology that does everything. Even geothermal has a limited potential in the country. We're not gonna find enough resource to supply 25,000 gigawatts, right? But I think when we have geothermal, hydro to balance, and then solar, now solar with batteries, I think all of this mix it goes back to the diversity point that Dr. Navarro said. I think this is what makes the grid a lot more resilient.
Okay. We're pressed for time, but I would have to ask this question to Sharon. When it comes to investment case and usage, what's your take on solar rooftop and decentralization of electrification or energization?
Well, we're actually actively promoting our demand side programs, and well, it will not only, it should not discriminate against any other renewable energy technologies. Well, most of the installations right now for the distributed energy resources, metering, and self-generating facilities are solar. Are hoping someday in the future other RE technologies will we will have that ability to put it on the behind the meter. For example, for net metering, we have farm in it. So I've seen turbines, the vertical one for wind that can be put up in rooftops or even parks or even inside compounds. So we hope to see that, but we are very supportive of the development of solar because we see it as one way to ease the requirement in the grid. And we hope that it's also one way for consumers to manage their electricity cost. Because of course, when you are producing your own electricity, to avoid utilities and even the programs, you will have the ability to use the distribution system as like your battery. But of course, we'd like to see more as we promote the solar installations behind the meter. We'd like to see more batteries also, because of course the when it comes to consumers, it will be more economically feasible to just store it rather than export it to the grid, because when you store it and you use it, the avoided cost is the full retail rate. When you export it, you will just be paid the blended generation rate. So
This is a very short follow-up question because it's coming from the desperation of the consumers. I know people who bought solar, the one that you can buy online, and I've known of people telling me that we've saved several hundreds of pesos by having that, because they can plug in and then the time that they would have to save, or there are some red alerts, they said that we're able to depend on the online solar system that we bought. Isn't that a case of desperation for consumers and government not doing enough, especially when it comes to supply and rates?
well, actually, the compelling reason why they are doing that is because of the rates that they're paying.
The savings.
And because of like what happened in May where there were brownouts, right? But it's also a technological innovation made available right now. So it gave us that ability to be able to arrest the high rates, and it gave us that ability to be able to choose how we manage that cost.
So for the wrap up, I will just have to get, if there's one word that would have to describe Energy Security Philippines, what is that, and why do you say so? It's the kind of situation that we have in the country. I'll start with Jay this time.
My one word will be evolving, right? So we've come, I think, a long way from where we were, I guess, still very fossil dominated. I think you see a path towards 35% to 50%. You know, I think we're trending towards meeting all of that, and I think that's clearly as we evolve toward those targets, and as we become more self-sufficient, as we have more diversity in our power generation mix, that's really the vehicle towards the destination of becoming more energy secure.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharon.
For me, support transition, but we also look into the reasonableness of the rates, the impact to consumers. Take for example, taking advantage fruits, like develop these RE technologies where there are already available transmission connections. So we just need to proceed with the energy transition, but take into account the cost impact to consumers.
And Miss Marietta.
One word, balancing.
Okay.
I think I don't have to elaborate.
Elaborate on it. Okay, so this is my take on the presentation of Dr. Adora. There are some metrics that you've presented for us to have energy security. Sufficiency, definitely, it's a there. Reliability, it's a question mark. Resilience, question mark also. Affordability, it's a big question mark as a consumer. Accessibility, that's also a question mark. Sustainability, somehow it's evolving, as Jay said. So there's a lot of challenges that we have yet to face. And thank you very much, everyone, for keeping with us, and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Please stay put. We will have an open forum. May we request our panelists to please stay up front. And also we invite Dora. All right. So at this point, we want to engage our participants into the open forum, which will be moderated as well with Ma'am Mirna.
So you can just line up. Who would want to go first? Okay, ma'am. Please state your name and your organization.
Good morning po. I am Modesta Franco from the Special Committee on Nuclear at the House of
Okay.
Representatives. A while ago, in our discussion, you already mentioned the energy, the renewable and thermal, green, everything. But you haven't mentioned the alternative nuclear, which is our government is somehow, we're looking forward to it because nowadays that we all know that during the problem of the Middle East, we are affected on that. So what in our part, our chairman,
Is that Phil Atom?
we are part of the PhilAtom. Our chairman, Chairman Cuangco, Mark Cuangco, are engaging to the nuclear power. So in our government, by the way, I just want to applaud the DOE because of their plan for the petroleum reservoir. We hope, our committee, we hope that you continue our problem. But in relation to our committee, we are looking towards the nuclear power plant to revise, to revisit, so that in the near future, we can have a good and a good resource of energy, not only for the geothermal and hydro, but also the nuclear power plant. So, what is, ma'am?
Can we start with
please?
DOE
Thank you.
first?
Nuclear power is still a part of the program of Department of Energy, and we had a target for that. But since nuclear will take time to to install, so we think that the plant target will be not exactly that we have what. The timeline is not exactly what we have targeted, but it's still continuing. Program is still continuing.
Ma'am, follow up po. Kasi a month ago, we had a forum with business and government sectors at the Manila Hotel. And then our chairman is really very open that our president is looking towards to the nuclear power. So in your end, the way I look at it, you're just looking on the geothermal and hydro. What about the nuclear, which is recent, which is really open na, nandun na po. And then yesterday or the other day, I attended the DAP forum, and then one of their suggestion is to have a modular nuclear. So we are not looking on the plant, but a modular aspect of it. Thank you, ma'am.
Actually, ma'am, our group from the nuclear energy division has had a lot of coordination with already the this power supply. I mean, that will be in charge of putting up the nuclear power plant. So we're looking at whether it is SMR or a large scale nuclear. Since that will be assessed because it depends on the size, capability of the grid. So SMR is very much, that can be accommodated by the grid. Pero marami pa hong ginagawa. Pero marami na hong nakakausap yung aming grupo tungkol doon sa mga prospective proponents for nuclear power plant.
Can I just get a short comment from Jay before Dr. Navarro?
So we've looked at nuclear as well, right? And I think when we looked at it, it's almost unavoidable that we have to consider nuclear within our energy mix, right? One, because when land becomes an issue, right? And we say, okay, if we need more generating capacity with lesser land occupied, then nuclear becomes a really viable option. And second, obviously, we like it because it's renewable energy. It's clean. So it hits quite a number of things at the same time. Now, there's been a discussion around sort of the traditional nuclear and SMRs. And I almost liking it to the iPhone question a while ago, right? Why will you buy an iPhone 10 when you already have an iPhone 18 already coming out? Sorry, I'm an iPhone user, so I'm using iPhone. Sorry to the Android users. But right, so you kind of want to look at the newer technologies maybe from a increased safety, increased, operational efficiency, all of these things factored in. But when we looked at it, what we found, and then probably this is why the DOE and the government is also having a hard time, because a lot of these technologies are still in the pilot stages, right? A lot of it is still being proven from a technology standpoint on one end, and I think also being proven from a development standpoint. We haven't, it's good if somebody can correct me, but we haven't really found an SMR that was built on budget and in time. Which I think, if we are going to embark on that route, we want some level of certainty that there is a clear path towards ending and a clear path towards commercialization. So I think those are the sticky points. But again, it will have to be a factor in our energy mix at some point.
All right.
We share the same mic. Sorry. We have a paper actually on nuclear energy development, the prospects of nuclear energy development. I think it was in 2022. It's downloadable from our website. And the way the government is moving is in the right direction, consistent with our recommendations in that study. And one of our recommendations is for the investment to be private sector driven and for the government to prepare the requirements, because times have changed. After the 2011 Fukushima disaster, safety standards have become more strict. And the Philippines, when previous policymakers talk about nuclear energy, they're so obsessed with Bataan nuclear power plant. But technology has changed. There are now not only small modular reactors, but also micro modular reactors. But as Jay had mentioned, there's no commercially proven technology yet. What we have are prototypes, but they are working prototypes, and let's encourage the private sector to observe some more and make deals, collaborate, network with your counterparts abroad, and of course our regulator to be ready with the regulations, because this has to be, stricter, and another regulator will be necessary, not just the ERC, but also a regulator for safety standards.
Thank Yeah, I'll give it to Sharon. And then can you just add to your comment? Because I've been to France, and they said now, because of the convergence of nuclear and RE, there's a lot of cycling that's happening with nuclear. So it becomes a commercial risk as well if you would have negative pricing for RE. So you would have to study the existence of both nuclear and RE, how they can be commercially viable to exist both in an energy system.
Yeah, because nuclear is basically base load, right? It can provide electricity 24/7. So if we go into transition, and the goal of the DOE under the Philippine Energy Plan is the phase out of coal, that can replace it, right? But on the part of the ERC, ma'am, when it comes to nuclear, we are aware of the plan to put up 1,200 by 2032 by the DOE. And because of that, we have been preparing. In fact, we had TORs already that we submitted to DOE to look into, to study the interconnection standards of these nuclear power plants, the big ones and the small modular reactors, and the TOR to study the pricing also. So we're preparing for this as a regulator because we don't want to be, be the one to delay any development in nuclear and any development of the goals in the Philippine Energy Plan.
Okay. There's nine, so I'll go to Ma'am. Can I just give short comment about commercialization of SMR? Because the concern of the Western world, the ones that are advancing actually are China and Russia, but there's geopolitics question to it. So it would also, one of those that would be a good part of the study for PIDS. So Ma'am, it's your turn.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Melaman Taring, former PIDS. And I'm glad that Dr. Navarro mentioned about PIDS paper on the nuclear. So, hanapin nyo yun. Okay, as a follow-up question related to the nuclear. I think the other day, there was a news that the local government, they passed the resolution. So, my question actually is about the local national. So even if the national would like to go on the nuclear, but if the local government,
Acceptance, yeah.
same with the basura, di ba? Some local government, dito na sila yung magahaw. So same with, of course, the risk, di ba? Locality, yung risk, yung community mo yung affected. So it will be national, local, policy intervention. So how do you balance those things? That's my first question. The second one is, medyo late ako. Sorry, Ma'am Adora, hindi ko nakita yung presentation. But ang ano ko is, I'm not sure if there's a lot of study regarding the wind as
Onshore wind
alternative.
or offshore wind?
Yes. Kasi ang alam natin, we have one in Ilocos, the other one in Rizal. So I'm not sure if we can further, explore that, So of course, we need this research. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, very quickly before, so who's the next but DOE? But very quickly yung sa nuclear, social acceptability, local government's acceptability of the nuclear proposal. That's very important. Kaya nga, the DOE is in the right direction, exploring possible sites and not beforehand, to anticipate the concerns of stakeholders, kasi di ba, not in backyard, that's the the NIMBY, that's the coal, natural gas, and yun na nga, nuclear, but it can be managed as other countries have shown, by showing that the benefits to the local host, the community host, will be substantial, and by ensuring that safety safeguards will be ensured, and that if in the case of there can be demonstration resilience test, demonstration drills on what will happen if something occurs. And besides yun na nga, there are higher assurances of safety after the 2011 Fukushima disaster. There are also instances na as early as yung age of school children, they're being exposed na to nuclear technology and safety, so that when they become adult after just a few years, no, or when they become teenagers, then adults, no, they have less fear of nuclear, and they become voters eventually, no. So hopefully that kind of strategy will also happen. Now on wind, no, wind next to solar, correct me ma'am sa ERC if I'm wrong, but di ba wind next to solar, that's the most, that's where we have the most number of projects. Kaya lang, what are the constraints, no? Yung infrastructure, the seaport infrastructure are not yet there. And also, there's a World Bank study dividing the country into renewable energy zones na maraming wind potential, no? The transmission connection there, in many of those locations are still missing, no? But what the ERC did, no, just a few days ago, it passed a resolution saying that grid infrastructure na point-to-point dedicated can now be done by third parties, not only NGCP. So that's a good development.
Ma'am Marietta, on the question, the top-down approach, national to local, social acceptability concern, nuclear.
Actually, when we have started the program, we have this we call 19 infrastructure program, and one of those consideration is the stakeholders involvement. So, one of the things that we have learned from the Bataan power plant, we need to ensure that all the community, the LGU as well as the national are, are aligned with this, with our plan. So, if the LGU does not want the area, of course, we need to look for another one. But what we do is, if we see that this area is really capable for that, then what we do is we have this information and education campaign. We talk to the stakeholders first, let them know what is nuclear, what needs to be in what is learned about nuclear and how can it contribute to the country for our energy security. So that's how we do it. We go first to the stakeholders, ask them, let them know, we know, so that our program will reach not only for the national but also for the community as well. That's very important.
Thank you, ma'am. At saka, di ba ang siting is a jurisdiction of PhilAtom already under the law. Sila yung mas may say eventually kung saan yung siting.
Sagot
Tama,
dapat.
ma'am?
Ang PhilAtom is a regulatory board wherein he sees everything according to the atom
Yes.
or nuclear.
Yeah.
Ma'am, may I just re-echo what the
Yeah,
statement of
very
our
shortly
chairman?
lang po.
Very short. Our chairman, Mark Quanco, always says, if there is a problem, it's a very, very long way. Kung ang worries po nila is the safetyness of the effect of the nuclear, do not worry po kasi in our hospital, the mga, yung x-ray po, we are using the, so don't worry about it. So, let our body po. Thank you, ma'am. Aside from that, ma'am, mini-mention po ni Chairman, there's a lot of provinces or municipalities are engaging or willingness to engage with this nuclear power plant. Thank you very much.
In addition po, with the education, we incorporated na rin po yung sa nuclear part to educate as early as yung mga bata. Alam na nila kung ano yung nuclear, para hindi sila matakot. Katulad ng sabi
May
niyo.
head na ba ng PhilAtom ngayon? Wala na. Okay. Alright. Sir, are you?
Hello. Yeah. Harvey from Senator Gatchalian. And
Okay, hi.
so general questions. First is related to the study. So to Dr. Navarro. So first is you've shown that there's a shift of needed for more GDP, or basically something like that, the energy to GDP ratio, right? And I think it's good news, but how much of it was driven by our growth driven by services and lack of growth? And in transition, we're talking towards demand. Given that the world is moving towards data and AI centric, which is energy heavy, how are we? And the second question is, this is kind of, pero what would you see as in terms of legislation and policy, as the lowest hanging fruit? That's first. And number two, what do you see is something that, it could be policy or legislation, is that what, so those are my questions. Thank you.
Mauna na ako. What we presented no are aggregate indicators no, and the effect of services faster than industry, manufacturing, agriculture. That's something that can be investigated. But your question is in the direction because that's a very likely reason no na kaya yung intensity mababa because yung manufacturing natin nakukulelat no, so that's something that can be investigated even by our industry and trade researchers here. And then on AI, the demand centers no is too early to say, so but we can anticipate that it will really put a lot of pressure to kahit pa ang daming demand efficiency improvements sa gagawin natin, but it's a challenge that we must confront. On the low-hanging fruit, sorry, flexibility technologies, no? And there are Expo participants here. Perhaps the stakeholders can look at what's available na you can use to invest in flexibility, the transmission side, flexibility of our grid, distribution side, yung distribution networks, and transmission assets na ginagamit ng ating GenCos. No? So that, systems can respond fast enough and respond to sudden changes in demand and sudden availability of intermittent renewable energy sources. Thank you.
I'll go to Jay first. The low-hanging fruit when it comes to legislation and what must be done even if it's difficult.
It was mentioned a while ago, right, that one of the more recent policies is that when you build a solar facility or a wind facility, you have to install batteries. I think 20% of the capacity has to be sort of absorbed by batteries. So I think the policy and the regulatory framework is quite robust. We have the laws, we have the policies. And kudos to our regulators because it continues to improve and to reach to the times. And so my answer is not really on policy, but really it's more of us coming together to communicate, to collaborate, and to plan better around what I mentioned a while ago, which is when we install, we need to be mindful where it's installed. We need to, because timing is not solely the discretion of the generators. It has to coincide with transmission development. So I think the policies are there. And forums like this are great. And even outside of these fora, it's good to have these conversations, this collaboration, so that planning as a country becomes really, really efficient.
Sharon?
Yeah. Well, actually, in terms of legislation, I think we're on right track. We have the IPIRA amendment. 25 years after IPIRA, we need to revisit that. Times has changed. A lot of developments and innovations in technologies have happened, so we need to revisit that. And then, of course, the RE Act of 2008. a lot has also happened, so we need to revisit that. Those are the two low-hanging fruits that I think in terms of legislation. And what must be done? Yes,
That
a
is
lot.
difficult,
Yeah, a
especially in
lot.
your case.
From generation, transmission, distribution, and supply. And we've discussed a lot here, and I think we have to do everything at the same time. It cannot be just one and leave the other sectors behind, but we have to move in parallel for all sectors.
Miss Marietta.
Okay. For us, of course, in the energy sector, as I've said, one thing that we need to do, of course, in the policy, on the policy side, the policy should balance everything. Again, I cannot get away from that word balancing. So if we have this policy on energy transition, we should have also a policy that will balance this with energy security. So if we have a lot of solar, we should have a lot. We should also balance this with base load capacity to support solar. So it cannot be only renewable energy, but it can be other technology that will support solar for as long as it is not it will achieve all of these objectives.
We just have a room for one last question, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Ice. I'm from Ideals. My question is more on the fiscal barriers. So one practical way to reduce electricity costs and help address the climate crisis is to accelerate the adoption of rooftop solar systems. While solar energy products enjoy zero import duties in the Philippines, fiscal barriers, particularly taxes such as VAT, and other related charges continue to increase the upfront cost of installation. May I ask the panel for their insights on the removal or reduction of these fiscal barriers? Specifically, how can tax reforms and fiscal incentives be designed to accelerate the adoption of rooftop solar energy in the Philippines while balancing government revenue considerations?
You're with what organization?
Ideals.
Ideals. Okay, so I'll start first with ARC.
Yeah, well, actually, a good thing the Office of Senator Win is here because that is something that has to be legislated. Yeah, but I agree with you. When we promote solar or renewable energy on the demand side, cost is a very big component of that decision. So that we support any legislation that will reduce cost of installation. We support any legislation that will streamline the processes, and especially the challenges for these installations. We've done on the part of ERC and DOE for those stakeholders that we regulate to streamline it to 10 days, but that's only as far as our reach is concerned. Needs to be streamlined also, like in the LGUs, and I heard there are barangays already requiring. So I support that, and I hope legislations on taxes will also be a focus.
I'll go to Jay first, and then Ma'am Marietta and Dr. Adora will have the last words.
So I think the question is with respect to household, right? So we have very little exposure to household level installation. So we still primarily are focusing on embedded. The closest we have is really installing rooftop solar on commercial buildings like malls. We've installed, in sort of the Jollibee concessionaire, so we installed rooftop for them, right? And outside of the fiscal incentives or barriers, I think one of the things that's really helpful is really on the financing side, right? So obviously, if you're looking at a maybe even a household, and more so for a mall, the investment can be quite significant, right? And obviously the the incentives from the government and all of that is helpful, But at the end of the day, if it's still a long capital investment, it's a big capital investment, some support on maybe private financial institutions can come in. It's certainly something from a generator provider perspective we don't offer. But again, if you know, a financial institution, an installer like us, right, can come together to then support rooftop solar, then it might unlock a lot more installation.
For the household on removal of taxes, actually, for renewable energy under the RE Act, it has a lot of incentives already. I hope that has trickled down to the household. I mean, those tax incentives are already transmitted to the household. Actually, we did simulation before that what will happen if taxes are removed from the from electricity, at least for say household. But however, of course, that will impact the revenues of the government. So even though we like it, so that it will reduce the electricity rates, but of course, where can we have this? Where do we support the other needs of the government? Where can we have the revenue to support the activities of the government? Something like that. Thank you.
To support the viewpoint that we need the balancing act. No? Kasi when you give VAT exemptions to households wanting to put up a rooftop solar, the lost revenues must come from elsewhere. But let's not lose hope. Perhaps legislators can come up with a policy wherein, say, the revenue loss could come from monetization of carbon credits, government-led monetization of carbon credits. So I'm giving this idea to the legislature through the representative of a senator. Kind of mechanism that can offset, revenue loss from granting VAT exemption. So the ERC is supporting that. I cannot say that I support that, but let's look at that. But think of ways of offsetting, this way of reducing the upfront cost of rooftop solar through VAT exemptions. But low-hanging fruit that can be hopefully easily, yung permitting process. No? If we can accelerate the permitting process and reduce the associated cost, not only the cost of the technology, but associated cost for installation, for services, perhaps rooftop solar can be more attractive to households and firms, MSMEs. Thank you.
And no more? Yeah, no more. Sorry. You can just approach all of the panelists after the panel discussion. So thank you very much again for the panel and a very insightful discussion that we have today. Thank you.
We request our panelists to please stay on stage. We will have a photo opportunity. Doc Randy, please join them on stage. Everyone, please don't go away yet. We will have a photo opportunity with you as well, together with the panelists and our president. Join us as we also include our guests and participants. Okay, our participants, please stand up for our photo opportunity session with the panelists. taking some photo ops. Before we officially conclude today's session, allow me to share a few reminders. Before you leave, we invite you to visit the PIDS booth near the Hall A entrance. It's L2, so you can browse our latest publication and research findings. A recording of today's forum will be available on the PIDS Facebook page and YouTube channel. The presentation materials will also be uploaded to the events page of the PIDS website. Please submit your accomplished feedback form at the registration booth before leaving so you can have your certificate of participation for today. You may also claim your packed lunch upon submission of your feedback form. And with that, thank you once again for joining us in today's session. To our panelists, to our guests, and to our moderator and presenter, thank you for being with us today. Have a great day, everyone.